Hi there, I'm Yudron Wangmo, and I am the director of the Mayum Mountain Foundation of California. We're a nonprofit, actually church, Buddhist church, and we have provide both online teachings and potentially in-person teachings from myself and others, generally centered around the Dujum Tersar, New Treasures of Dujum tradition, which is a sub-tradition of the Nyingma tradition. But whatever we do can be generalized to your experience as a practitioner in the Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism. This may be all gobbledygook to you, I don't know, but here we go. So we're a practice-based tradition, and it's not so much, the point of studying for years and years, which is a marvelous thing to do, is to gain confidence in practice. And also then there's scholars who become great educators who spent years in monasteries studying. But our basic thrust is personal transformation and eventual liberation into enlightenment from daily practice, in the best case scenario, or at least intermittent practice. We can give it a go that way. But the most important thing for our own, to really bring the Dharma over here, the teachings of the Buddha and the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism under Guru Rinpoche Padmasambhava into our real mind and really have it soften, not like soften like get stupid, but soften, become less fixated, rigid, develop gradually decreasing our strong sense of self, or the sort of the feeling that the whole universe is operating around our wants and needs. And then also the difficulty of really assigning the way that we assign meaning to events and happenings and things that we encounter in the world is faulty, because based on our programming as individuals, you can have, as you may well know, you may be with a friend or a group of friends and you all experience the same thing, ostensibly. Together, you all have an intense experience, like, I don't know, car wreck, or you all go to a movie together, whatever, and everybody has a different experience of it. So we have pre-conditioning, and in our Buddhism, we would say that's from multiple lifetimes, many, many lifetimes of training, of our certain kind of styling, and like a developing, see this, I have this silly hairstyle right now. Developing, it's like a style of consciousness that's unique to us probably, or similar to some other people, that has been going on sort of from mental training over many lifetimes. This consciousness goes on, and a goal of Buddhism is to go beyond this this kind of training and habituation and have a fresh, wide open experience of things as they really are. Somehow I feel like I'm starting a thought and kind of meandering, but that's maybe just the way it is. So anyway, the way we do this is through practice, and if it can be even a little bit of practice every day or most days of the week, it's actually better than going away once a year and saying, oh, I'm going to go do a retreat. It's great, it's fantastic. I'm going to go to a Buddhist center and I'm going to be really serious for a week, which is these days is a huge privilege, because it costs a lot of money, unless there's some really unusual situation where somebody's sponsoring you or whatever. It was difficult for people back in the day, in the 90s and stuff, when I was beginning to train, for people to do that, then take a week off of work. So at that time, people could work nursing jobs, or if they're really into Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism. They could work nursing jobs or become a massage therapist or a tradesperson, and work intermittently, like take as many weeks off as they could afford and leave their, employment for a period of time, come back, pick it up, and it was no problem. But nowadays, what life is like, right? Just to survive, you have to work ridiculous hours, and there's so many people, many more people than there were, so there's traffic and crowds, and it's tough. So that's a digression, but it's hard to go to a Dharma center, and it may not be, and most people maybe can't even think about that. They get 2 weeks off a year, they have family needs, if that, when you're starting out as for example, a nursing assistant, or a nurse, even the first year you may only get 1 week off. And maybe they don't even really want you to take it all at once. So that model is becoming less and less accessible to the majority of people. And the point I was going in with is it's less effective to do a lot of practice all at once. It's good, and then stop for the rest of the year, than it is to adopt a doable daily practice like this one that's pretty short. I mean, a half hour. A lot of people are doing mindfulness practice, for example. This is a different model. But for 20 minutes or a half hour a day, it's not that inaccessible. Most people, unless you have like 7 children, or you're in prison or the military where they have a structure there's no time in it. Most people can do that. So what I've done is picked out what I think is the most important thing. And it may surprise you to spend that 20 minutes or half hour on. So you may think, the most important thing is to sit and meditate and bring my attention back to a point. And that's really great. And I can't say that's unimportant. Some form of mindfulness practice, or shamatha, pacifying the mind. And that's called in Sanskrit shamatha. And that's great. But in our Nyingma tradition, you actually start out by connecting with the Dharma. And the Dharma teachings are integrated with the practices in words. So I am instead focusing primarily, if we start out with the general practices of Buddhists all over the world making offering, imagining the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in front of us. And what do Buddha and Bodhisattvas mean? It means people have really awakened into this naked awareness. Words are inadequate. Fresh consciousness, unstained by habitual thinking. So you imagine that kind of being. Most people love the image of the Buddha cross-legged, sitting in posture, and one of his standard hands in a certain way, maybe hands on his knees or in his lap, or touching the ground with one hand, etc. That's beautiful. But however you imagine, you may have fallen in love with female imagery in Tibetan Buddhism, Tara, etc. You could see a million Taras out there, could be your Buddhas. And the Bodhisattvas are those that are almost there. They've been working for countless eons to attain awakening. Attaining is kind of a funny word. Find their awakening. And they're not 100%, clear. I hate to use, it sounds like Scientology language, because Scientology and a lot of cults adopted Buddhist language. Because they were just drawing from everywhere to create their systems of control, right? But anyway, this is not a system of control. This is your own practice, free and open, available to all. And so we're using, getting back to the topic, what we're doing. So I do some offering practices at the beginning, water, and the saying words, and then I call it a mantra. It's not really a mantra, but in Sanskrit, doing the offering in Sanskrit, saying, I'm offering this incense, etc., to you, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, may it be virtuous. I'm just making that up, but it's customary to say a few words in Sanskrit. Then we'll move to the Mahayana tradition, which is our great tradition of the awakened bodhisattvas. And then so bodhisattva here, almost, yes, on the path, 90% awakened, 70% awakened, like that. Lama Tarchin Rinpoche, one of my key teachers, expressed it. But the other sense is the bodhisattvas is this incredible compassion for all living beings equally has blossomed. So, and along with an awareness of the empty nature of reality and what is beyond our own concepts about ourself. And so that's what it means to progress along the path. And this practice of the prajna paramita, the perfection of wisdom, in one syllable, it's kind of funny that I'm doing it. People used to do the Heart Sutra there at this point in their practice, and you can do the Heart Sutra if you prefer. But I'm just trying to keep the time limited, and even that, the Heart Sutra, which is one of the most pithy, essentialized versions of this beautiful Mahayana literature called The Perfection of Wisdom. But even more pithy is the perfection of wisdom in one syllable. So it's an experiential thing. You can taste the mind of a bodhisattva. You can be the mind of a bodhisattva by sounding the syllable ah. And so there's a little intro and outro, and then we sound the syllable ah, and then we rest there in that state. What is that? What is that subtle thing going on? It clears out the cobwebs for a moment, and then you'll feel probably your habituals, this kind of snare, take hold of your leg, of your habitual thinking, which we're just as natural. We can, it's hard to get away from thinking our habitual ways, and that evolves into feeling, being an angry person or a jealous person or whatever is your dominant go-to emotion comes out of your ways of thinking about things. So then naturally we move into this training of the foundation practices. There's many texts for the foundation practices. We're using here the Dakini Heart Essence or Khandro Tutik practice, which was a mind treasure of Kyabje, they say, refuge leader, Dujim Rinpoche Jitu Yeshe Dorje in the mid-20th century. There's an unfolding process of this whole collection of teachings around the Dakini, or the wisdom Buddha, Yeshe Sogyal, one of Guru Rinpoche's first students 1,000 years ago in Tibet, who became herself realized Buddhahood in her lifetime. So this is used as in this relationship with Guru Rinpoche, who's the perfection of all, has come to symbolize the perfection of all practices, somebody who knew all practices, has perfected all qualities and attained Buddhahood. And then between the two of them, it's kind of like a dance of the feminine and masculine principles. Feminine principle representing wisdom, and here wisdom means this bright, clear consciousness, non-conceptuality. All sorts of qualities come forth in that state. And then, interestingly, compassion is the masculine principle. So compassion manifests in helping, teaching, guiding, but all kinds of ways. Compassion arises. So they're depicted, and I don't have drawings there yet. If you're interested, I can put them into the text. They're in a perfected form, the Sambhogakaya in Sanskrit. Not looking so much like ordinary humans, but anyway. Guru Rinpoche is Vajradhara. He starts out as blue Vajradhara, and he moves to being red Vajradhara. like form in his form as Vajradhara, Vajra holder, cross-legged with bell and Vajra like this. Above Yeshasogil's head, Yeshasogil standing, one foot slightly raised. A driguk, or flaying knife, in one hand, and a kapala in the other of nectar. White, she's white throughout. It's a beautiful practice, and it's easy, simple. That's why we said it. Todd Creamer and I were able to create a version that is chantable in English. You don't lose any meaning. Every line is true to the words, and the meaning is not so easy with a lot of text. But in this particular collection of texts centered around Yeshasogya, that was bloomed in the wisdom mind of Dudjom Rinpoche. Everything's very simple and pretty straightforward. I mean, there are some elaborate ceremonies. I'm not going to kid you, but the basic practices you do for enlightenment, very easy to understand, and yet a scholar, Lama Tarchin Rinpoche used to say, and yet a scholar could look at everything and say it's all perfect, there's nothing missing in this. So, it's not as short as the shortest foundational practice in the world, the short Dudjom Tersar Nundra, or foundational practice, but it's not long either. It's not that long. You notice we're doing it. I'm singing super slow. And once you get the hang of it, if you decide to adopt this at your personal practice, number one, you need to get instruction, complete instruction. Number two, you need to get the transmission of it from somebody, myself or I need to Dudjom Tersar Lama, for example, could give you all that. And where was I going with that? Yeah, so you need the transmission, but if you're going to do it for intensively, the sections are repeated, mantras are repeated more, it's filled out. And so we're not practicing that style here. For example, there's a 7-branch offering that's usually repeated 7 times by the Tibetans. And there's but here we're focusing on it as a kind of teaching, integrating the teachings with our lives, because you can meditate a lot, and that's great, but unless you shift your mind to the Buddha Dharma way of thinking, then you're not really going to attain awakening. Sorry. Practicing shamatha will not bring you to Buddhahood. It may bring you to a situation in which you can practice different things and go on and attain Buddhahood, but it's going to make you a much more mellow person, and certainly help you relax, and it's very positive. But this is where we integrate our mind with the teachings of the Buddha in a personal way. So most important are these 4 thoughts in the beginning, to turn your mind to the Dharma. Precious human birth, how important, how unusual this circumstance is, even among humans, that we have this opportunity to meet with genuine Dharma and put it into practice. And then impermanence, how fragile this situation is. We all see that every day. I was just looking at, this will date out, but I was just looking at the trial for Alex Murdaugh, or Murdaugh, sometimes they say, who was a scoundrel who killed his wife and son, among many other crimes. And where was I going with that? He didn't see, for years and years, he was defrauding himself. Interesting slip of the tongue, because he was harming himself, but he didn't know it. He was just going on and on, ripping people off. And it reached a crisis point where he was caught, and then all hell broke loose. He tried to have somebody kill him. And I guess he was in that way they could get an insurance, his family could get insurance money for it. He's even lying in his suicide attempts. And then he killed his, who knows what, his twisted mind, how that came out. But when he really came down to it, and he was caught defrauding people for multi-millions of dollars as a lawyer. He killed his son and his wife, just convicted. So here's a situation where he didn't recognize that he had a precious human birth and that this life is finite. And more importantly, the karma, the kind of act has terrible effects on your consciousness and its opportunities for awakening for billions of years to come. That's the classical teachings on it. And whether you want to take that as a metaphor or not, it's up to you. You know, if you want to be literary, literal about it. You know, he's going to go to hell, and, you know, we have all those similar things to all religions have these concepts. But at any rate, he's training his mind in the most negative. He's training his mind to become like a demon, you know, rather than like a Buddha, because he didn't understand karma, which is the next section. You know, is one of the next section. The other section is suffering. His acts of hate and greed are going to lead to suffering for an immeasurable period of time. So these four thoughts, I mean, that's an extreme case where someone had took the absolute opposite of Dharma, you know, in their lives. And most of us aren't like that. People who are drawn to this path aren't really like that. It's not a path for people who want power and fame, money. Then, you know, how do we move beyond this realm of these four, from realizing these four states and really taking them to heart, these four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma? How do we move out it forward? We take a refuge, we go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. We generate the mind of awakening, the bodhicitta, and great compassion towards all living beings equally. And we renounce all negative actions, harmful actions of others. We purify in previous negative karma through the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva, which in this practice, if you've done this mantra before, you'll notice for a lot of people it's reversed for how they usually do it. There's two lines that are reversed, and you'll actually see me stumble on it sometimes. That's the way the terma came forth. The treasure, terma means revelation, kind of. And then making all immeasurable offerings in this process to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Well, I'm doing a mudra, a hand gesture, but there's other things you can do to represent this offering. But offering everything that you love in the universe up to awakening itself. Buddha, you visualize in front, in this case, Rinpoche and Yeshe Sugyo, are represent your own awakening, your own future awakening, what they've already accomplished, you know. And it also makes a powerful connection between the lineage of awakening, the whole living tradition of awakening, and yourself. Then we go and we merge our mind with an enlightened being's mind. Here, Guru Rinpoche is above our head in the form of red Vajradhara-like figure. Pema Garwang Tuting, so it's called. And then we recite the mantra of the guide, Mahum Mahaguru Sarva Siddhi Om, and then we receive the four empowerments. And when you receive instruction, you'll know more about that, but basically white, red, and blue lights come down from Guru Rinpoche above into you as Yeshe Sugyo. Then the Guru Rinpoche himself dissolves into light and dissolves into you, and you dissolve into light, and you rest there. It's a great place to practice. And you'll notice subtle differences between this and practicing Shine meditation. When you have gone through these steps, and then you say, okay, just be there with that merging. I don't know, tell me if it's not true for you, but it's not the same as calming yourself by bringing your mind back to an object again. It's bright, it's open, it's indescribable. And very quickly, we don't go on and on. As thoughts begin to intrude, then you say, okay, it's time to dedicate merit. You dedicate the merit. And Yudron Rinpoche has inserted a very important prayer at the end, an aspiration to be reborn in Rinpoche's realm. The lotus land of clear light, that's what I want to say. But actually, it's his palace. It refers to his palace. Pema is his palace. In the Zongdokpari is his realm. And then the specific, right there in his palace is Pema. Okay, so this talk is naturally being a half an hour, like most things. If you're interested in what we're doing, you can, the best way is to sign up for our email list at www.mayum, M-A-Y-U-M, mountain.org. I say it because we changed URLs. And I hope to see you there. Bye now, everybody. Have a wonderful day.